What started as a small online prayer group turned into a worldwide phenomenon. We are Remnant Warriors Global Incorporated. Our calling is raising the next generation, equipping future leaders, mentoring God's daughters, navigating the scriptures, activating spiritual gifts, nurturing the soul, and training warriors. Over 7,000 members online in 12 countries, changing lives one post, one prayer, one Bible study at a time. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Adrienne Young, the founder and visionary of Remnant Warriors Global Incorporated, where we teach women and girls how powerful they are and how to walk in their kingdom authority. This is a double header day for Warrior Wednesday. If you joined us earlier around 4 o'clock, we heard from Yvette, and my lash almost came off, but I stayed in God. Her story was amazing. And I want to share with you really quick as you're joining us. And for those who catching the replay, thank you so much in advance for sharing the broadcast, tagging someone, hitting the hearts and thumbs as you come on, and already flanking prayers toward our brother tonight who's going to share a story. So I received a text earlier from one of our women who talked about Yvette's story, and she said her story made me realize what I was watching my mother go through with my father. Eye-opening. So thankful she left and broke the cycle. And I haven't texted you back to the person who texted me. She asked me a question, and I said, you know what? It's funny because as I was listening to Yvette's stories, I was thinking of my story. Not my husband. He ain't crazy. But what I went through, hey, Mama D, with in college and being abused in that regard. And the same way also a couple of other women's stories that I know who have literally escaped domestic violence, and I'm so grateful they're here to be able to share their story. So tonight, I'm really honored. I can't even begin to thank God enough for the connection, and shout out to Des, who allowed us to have this time with our brother, Kristen Rainey. I'm going to introduce him, and I am going to read most of his bio because of the fact you need to hear how God has moved in his life, and then I'm going to bring him to the live stream. So as you're sharing the broadcast, and I just shared it with Women Who War, listen, some of you, I would like for you to start a watch party if possible. I was trying to do it from my device and couldn't, because as people are scrolling, it could be that your watch party is what grabs them and saves the life of a woman, or saves the life of anyone who is facing this situation. You may become the solution to their problem, the answer to their prayer, just by sharing it. So somebody type in, it's bigger than us. I know I normally don't ask you to share, but I asked God tonight. I said, Lord, let it be that someone sees this broadcast and let their testimony be, I was watching Remnant Warriors Global Incorporated and had no idea how to get out of a situation, and I found my answer. So for those of you who needed a way of escape, there's a national hotline that's scrolling across the screen that will probably stay there in the majority of it, so you can have a plan of a way to escape. All right. So our brother Christian is a Charleston County native, like my husband. It's crazy because he lived in West Ashley, like my husband too. And he's the oldest of 5 children and was educated in Charleston County school system. He is a husband to his high school sweetheart, who is also a breast cancer survivor, like many of you out there. Hit the hearts on that, Danielle, and the father to their 2 children. And I just saw his youngest daughter, and she's absolutely like gorgeous, adorable. I hope you get a sneak peek of her tonight. He's the founder of CEO of MAD USA, which is Men Against Domestic Violence and Abuse. It's an organization that is committed to shining a new light on what the real issue has been in regard to domestic violence. In his position at MAD, he collaborates with other agencies to bring awareness in schools, at training sessions and community events. He's also the captain with the North Charleston Fire Department, where he's worked for 8 years. His Christian's passion for the work he does came as a result of losing his mother and 4 siblings to domestic violence. I'm going to say that again. He lost his mom and for siblings to domestic violence. He is deeply committed to helping others recognize the indicators of domestic violence and learn about resources to get assistance. Because domestic violence is a personal focus, his professional enthusiasm is ignited by mentoring young men in the community. His desires to have his impact and influence with MAD USA Incorporated help future generations to see domestic violence through a different lens. Christian was also appointed to participate in the South Carolina Governor's Domestic Violence Task Force, along with several other organizations throughout the state of South Carolina, which I think that is amazing. They had a Senate bill that was pushed through. He's traveled countless days testifying before the domestic violence committees and efforts to get the bill passed. And this reform bill was signed into law by former governor now, Nikki Haley, on March 15, 2016. He's also currently participant in children's charities, state fire instructor, and I know he just finished doing basketball practice, so he's tired a little bit. But I am so excited to have this time for me. And he attends Royal, and one of our founders, Shakima Chapman, and I visit Royal. I absolutely love Royal Missionary Baptist Church. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, would you hit the hearts and please welcome our guest tonight, Brother Christian Rainey. Christian, thank you so much for joining us. Good.
Thank you. It's a blessing having me.
I really appreciate you and your time. I'm not going to prolong it. I just want you to go ahead and share your story, share what's on your heart, and how we can help continue to spread awareness through MAD and Safe Alliance, Remnant, however we can help you.
Well, I mean, my story dates back this year, it'll be about 14 years ago, when I simply got a phone call. I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, attending Southern University, and I got a phone call from my cousin asking me to fly home. And so I hopped on the plane the next morning and flew home, not really knowing what I was flying home for. And once she picked me up from the airport, she took me out to Hampton Park and basically just delivered the worst news that I've ever had in my life. She simply said that they're all gone. And, I asked her, I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, she started naming my mom and my siblings. And that was the first time in my life when I realized why God does not want to, I guess why God didn't design us to hate, or why, hate is one of those emotions that we're supposed to not allow ourselves to be consumed by, because it truly can take over your life. And it basically altered mine for, just about 6 years. So I came home, planned the funeral, and it was the first funeral that was ever held at the North Charleston Coliseum. And I think we had roughly about 2,000 plus people attend the funeral. And after the funeral, I just kind of went back to Louisiana and lived life the best way that I knew how. Two ironic things happened before this happened. I got baptized roughly 30 days before this incident happened. So religiously, to me, it just felt like a kick in the face. I mean, I just felt like, I took a huge step towards my faith, and for this to be what I got in return, it hurt me deeply. And my mom was battling colon cancer for about a year. And so I had been back and forth between Louisiana and Charleston to attend some chemo sessions with her. And we lost touch for about a month, which was odd because we spoke on a weekly basis. We had a very, very close relationship. My mom had me, I think, when she was 17. So, as she was growing and maturing, I was growing and maturing. And she was literally like my best friend / mom. So it was odd for us not to speak for that length of time. And my little sister called me on my job uh, that Friday. Called me on my job that Friday, left me a voicemail, called her back. Um, I spoke to my little sister and two of my brothers and my mother. And, I asked her how she was doing. She said, everything's, okay, wrapping up chemo, coming up on the last couple of sessions. And she was finishing up school as well. And, I said, well, I haven't spoke to you in a while. She was like, yeah, things just been kind of busy. So, Um, I just told her, I said, well, I miss you, and just told her how things were going in school. And, she said, well, we'll make sure that we keep in touch. And, she told me that she's about to go to Moser Festival and that she would give me a call tomorrow. And I said, well, I love you. And I said, make sure you call me tomorrow. She said, I promise. And that was the last time I spoke to my mom. They actually got murdered later on, either that night or that next morning. Um, and so that was the last conversation I had with her. And, it just, I really walked around for about 6.5 years, um, just really trying to figure out life, what life is like without them. Um, and just coming to the realization that they weren't coming back. So I actually left Baton Rouge, went to Florida by myself, because I just felt like everyone around me was a crutch, somebody I can lean on, somebody I can emotionally depend on. And it wasn't allowing me to progress or move forward the way that I felt like I needed to. And so I went to school in Florida, stayed by myself for a year and a half. And it was the first time that it was really just me and God, trying to figure out, you know, where do we go from here? And for a long time, I asked the wrong questions. I was praying, asking why what God allowed this to happen to me. And when I moved back to Charleston, I attended a church, Seacoast, and the first sermon that I heard was about asking God the right questions, and instead of asking God why, asking for guidance. And later on that year, I received an award that I felt like I didn't deserve. It was a Distinguished Survivor Award.
Hmm.
And I felt like I didn't deserve it because I truly didn't feel like I had survived anything yet. Like I still felt like I was suffering on the inside. I didn't really accomplish much. But one thing that that award did was I was asking for guidance. And I think that award kind of made me want to live up to the expectation that was already given to me without me feeling like I deserved it. And so while praying, I mean, I really just started paying more attention to domestic violence, started diving more into the signs, the underlying things that we typically don't talk about. And, it's just I grew up in a household where my mom was abused roughly from the age of 6 that I can remember, that my mom was domestically abused. And I mean, I, I, I didn't understand. When I was older, she got a check one day, and she told me, "Don't tell Michael that I got this check." And I told her, I was like, I don't know why I would tell him anyway, because we didn't have a relationship like that. But I didn't understand the different dynamics of domestic violence and financial abuse and manipulation, mental abuse, things of that nature. So, as I learn, I can kind of go back to certain things in my mom's relationships and pinpoint just signs that I should have. I can't say I should have picked up on because I was young, but um, but other people probably could have picked up on. But the sad thing about it is we feel like domestic violence is a personal problem, and it's everybody's issue. Simply because what happened to me could simply happen to anybody else. And that's why the work uh, that we do is so important. I mean, I can't tell you how grateful and how much of a blessing it is to see South Carolina really move in a direction it has. We started off 1 and 2, back and forth, and I think we were in the top 10 since they actually started tracking this data. And
Top 10 men in the top 10 state in what? Getting abused or getting help?
women being murdered by men.
We're top 10. Wow. I live in South Carolina. This is mind blowing. I don't know, for those of you who are just joining us and for those who are just logging on, this is Kristen, and he's talking about and sharing a story about how he lost his mom. How many siblings was it that you lost as well?
4. My
Four
mom
siblings.
was 39.
Wow.
My brother closest to me, he was 16. My other brother was 13. My youngest brother was 8. My little sister was 5, about to turn 6.
And was this live-in boyfriend? What's the scenario? Because I want people to realize what
It's my mom's husband. I mean, he wasn't a father to any of us, but he married my mom the year prior. It was just certain things. I was very protective of my mom, especially watching her be abused from the age that I was. And it was just, I didn't want to give her away to anybody to be married. I really didn't know him like that. And I mean, he really ruined my relationship with people for life, to be honest with you. When we were in Baton Rouge, when I graduated high school, he was out there and he was telling me how much he loved my mom, how much he loved my siblings, and how he would never do anything to hurt them. And when somebody cries and does that kind of thing and turns around and literally takes everything that you love away from you, I mean, it's hard to trust anything that anybody says. Or I mean, it just really ruined me as far as expectations of relationships. And I guess when it comes to just trusting people and patience with people as well, because I realized that people are literally capable of doing just about anything.
So how did you get to the point, and I don't know if you're there, where you could trust and love to that level again? Was it therapy? Was it time?
A little bit of mix of both. Therapy, ups and downs. The first therapy that I tried was religious counseling, and I think I may have had the wrong pastor.
I don't see how a pastor can handle that. I'm in those classes in seminary. And the one thing I've learned, we literally said this last night in our pastoral care and counseling class, there's some things that we just don't have capacity and we need to refer out. Your case, I would have said, I am not the person to talk with you about this. I'm going to refer you out. So obviously, I'm so sorry that happened.
It's okay. I mean, it was a learning lesson.
Let me just say this real quick for those of us who are in that type of field. Be okay with not being able to handle some things. And I'm going to be very churchy. We're not anointed and graced for every thing that comes our way. And you don't have to be Jesus or somebody's God or somebody's Savior. If you can't handle it, please pass it along to the people who are equipped and can handle it. Okay, push play. That was my commercial.
And to be honest with you, I've only really found one person that was able to handle it. I mean, I had a dean of counseling from our university. She counseled me for about a year. And I mean, literally, she said that she ran out of things to talk about.
So did she counsel you from the trauma side or grief, loss, death, and dying side? I'm curious.
Uh, she transitioned between the two. But, she said simply, and I mean, I think she did good. But she just simply said, I've lost a mother that was sick. I've never had anyone close to me murdered, and not even close to this magnitude. And I think that's the unique challenge about trying to find a counselor is I think to counsel, you don't necessarily have to have experienced it.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
I don't, yeah. I mean, I had a guy, and most of my counselors were females. And I had one male counselor, and I mean, honestly, he did a phenomenal job. But he ended up moving to Columbia, like in mid-session, and
Mm.
he was like, "Yeah, there's another guy coming in that's taking my spot, and you can start with him." And I'm like,
No.
No,
No,
I'm
you
not
don't
for that.
start over. As a woman who
Uh,
is loves therapy and I sit on the couch, and is a counselor, no, that was not.
yeah, I wasn't going to start over again
No.
and repeat myself. So, but just kind of diving in the Word of God. But I think the most inspirational book in the Bible for me has been the Book of Job, and it's just really it was something that someone told me to read. Like I'm talking literally days after this happened, um, and finally I started reading it and really started understanding. Even though Job didn't understand that, Job wasn't knowledgeable of the fact that God allowed this to happen.
Hmm.
You know, and most people would look at it as Satan and God playing chess, but literally, I mean, he said this is my most faithful, and he will um, never basically disagree and never turn his back, and he didn't. And I mean, he nearly stripped him. He definitely stripped him of everything, and I felt basically the same way. I mean, at a point in time, I didn't want to have kids. I didn't want to, even indulge in any type of life where I felt like I had to commit to something that I could lose. That was the biggest hurdle to get over, is to commit to something after losing so much. You're just afraid to lose. So, you know, having kids, you're like, well, what if this happens, or what if that happens? And I just really had to learn, like, life is life. Um, you know, Pastor Halt said it a couple of weeks ago. I mean, you play the hand that you're dealt. I mean, it's just that simple, and I mean that's just the philosophy that I've had to really carry with myself is do what I can to carry on the legacy of my mom and my siblings. Make sure that it's saving somebody else's life, educating young children to prevent them from ending up in the same situation, and just continue to live. Because I feel like, at any point in time I took my life or I don't live my life to the fullest, he wins. Because technically he killed me as well. Not
That's
physically,
good,
but
bro.
by spirit.
That's good. That is worth repeating. I don't know if you heard my brother, but he literally said, when you decide not to live, you have lost your life. You've allowed the enemy to kill you. And I think so many times we feel like after losses, significant losses, like I can't go on. I don't want to go on. There's no reason to go on. But I'm so grateful, brother, that you did go on. So I want to know, how did you get, as your healing process continued, from that state of mind into doing Men Against Domestic Violence?
Um, just simply after that award, I just figured I should do something on the anniversary of my family's death, in honor of them, to bring about awareness to domestic violence. Unknowing to me that they died the day before, or they died September 30th. Um, Obviously, the day before October 1st, of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So, I held it like right on the Saturday, right before. I think the first time we did it, I think it was like on the 28th or something like that. And, you know, from there, I mean, we had 6 women that came to that event. Honestly, I wasn't expecting anybody to come. It was really last minute. Spirit.
Y'all pray. Okay, you're back.
Am I good again?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
So the spirit just kind of moved me, and I got with some people I work with in the city, the police chief at the time, and reached out to some people, and reached out to Walmart, asking them if they wouldn't mind if we used their parking lot to bring awareness to domestic violence, and they were open to it. And Sam's kind of came along, and Walmart, I think, changed managers. And he was just like, only the Boy Scouts are allowed to come. And Sam's was like, well, you can come use our parking lot. So we just held it there ever since. And the reason why I wanted to hold that event there is because, yeah, you can hold it at a park and, invite a bunch of people, but I want people to get it who weren't going out that Saturday morning to get that information.
That's good.
I want people to be able to walk up to an event, not feel like people are judging them, or trying to, evaluate their situation. I mean, people walk in and out of that event, with information, that call me and say, "Hey, I stopped by your event, got this information. I know somebody who has an issue," and people, and it gives a a person who's being abused a decent excuse to leave. And one of the things that people don't understand about power and control, and a lot of people obviously say that they would never end up in that situation, is the fact that your whole life is controlled. I know people who have been on $20 a week allowances who have to prove where they spend the money. If they do not spend the money, they have to give it back. If they spend it and don't have receipt of what they're spending on, they're abused. So, we have to understand, the true dynamics of domestic violence, and not just always focus on the physical. Because I think I had a Zoom event the other day, and somebody asked the question, what do I feel is worse, physical or mental abuse? And I told them mental abuse by far. Because the thing about physical scars, I mean, they heal over time. Mental scars, they stick around forever, and they traumatize your life forever, and they shape the way that you structure your relationships. And that's what I did a TED talk on in Michigan. Simply, love is not love, meaning love is not layered or oppressed violent emotions. And what I shaped in that talk was basically our foundation of how we learn how to love. Most people believe we are born knowing how to love, but we're taught. It's like any other emotion. We're taught by examples, and our examples usually are our foundations, our parents, and then once we get older, um, it's social media, mass media, our peers, and it just kind of snowballs from there. And if our foundation is not solid, which I mean, most people can't say that they grew up in a two-parent home, in a healthy two-parent home at that. Um, that's where proactive education comes in. It. Because if 85% of children who grew up in households that experience domestic violence either become abused or abusers, the data shows that if you're exposed to it, that's the way that you think love is. You normalize it.
You just said a key word. You normalize it. And I see that clearly where if you grow up and you think that's normal, being beat up, controlled by finances, verbal abuse, and that's all they know. And so I really believe it becomes then, as we say in the church, generational curse. And it's passed down from generation to generation, and nobody's broken it to show them what real love looks like. So is that some of the things you get to do with your organization? Because I know you do mentoring of young men and everything as well.
Yeah, we do what's called MEAN, which is Men Empowering Adolescents now. This year we were supposed to start Shine, which I was just the idealist, but I wasn't going to follow through with it. I have a older sister or mentor that lives in Orangeburg that I wanted to head it up, and Shine started for sisters heading into new empowerment. Um, and so what we do with MEAN is we get males together, and we get males that are legislators, whether they're senators, House representatives, entrepreneurs, local uh, business people, firefighters, police officers, military, anybody who's willing to mentor. And it's a collaborative event between mentoring groups who actually usually do their own thing. And so I tell people, I mean, we're under the same city trying to accomplish the same goals. Let's work together. So it's a free event for children. Their parents literally just drop them off, and we take care of them for about 6 or 7 hours. And
That's
we just
amazing.
kind of feed into their future. I mean, our young men are so valuable to the society, and we really just have to invest. I mean, I grew up in a household where statistically I wasn't supposed to either be here or, I was supposed to be in jail. But, I just really wanted to change the landscape of my life and make a better future for myself and the environment that I grew up in. Just try my best not to repeat.
I love it. Thank you. That is amazing. And I applaud you and the organization and those who partner with you. I'm all about collaboration. And I think that's something that we need to do more of and stop being our own entities and separateness where if we unite together. Like the Bible said, one can put 1,000 in flight, but two can put 10,000 in flight. Because imagine how much we could do more for our state, for our community, for our country if we united in that way. So I love that. And I'll let us know how our organization can support in that way personally. We love to partner with organizations such as yours and those who are basically, it's a kingdom work, brother, at the end of the day. God has called
It'll be
you.
a lot easier once this pandemic's over.
I think I've said that like 4 times today, but yeah, this is
I
a
mean, it's
stretch.
like a never-ending reality show that you're just waiting to be over. It just
Was
continues.
that the Truman Show with Jim Carrey? Wake up and every day we're like,
Yep,
it's still
yep,
here.
yep, yep.
It's still here. Yeah, I appreciate
That
it.
is a good reference. I did not think about it. That is good.
Yeah, you have to remember to use that next time. Is there anything else you want to share before we end tonight and show and tell us any ways that we can partner with you personally?
I just tell people to just please be aware of the signs. Educate yourself on domestic violence, and don't be afraid to speak with someone who you know is going through it. But the key thing that I always stress to people is please be patient. So often we lose patience with people who are victims of domestic violence. And what we don't understand is the cycle of domestic violence. And I challenge people to go really look at and study the cycle of domestic violence so you understand mentally what is happening to that person. And, just I guess a short snippet, but when we first start dating people, we understand that we're typically not ourselves, right? We kind of send our representative, our best self. And so that person is the convincing person that I am trustworthy. I am going to treat you the way that you should be treated, talk to you the way that you should be spoken to, and love you the way that you should be loved, right? And I when I teach teenagers, I said, well, when do you really learn who you date? And they're like 30 days, 60 days, 4 months, 6 months. And I said, there really isn't a time limit on it. I said, when you have your first altercation or disagreement, or when you see how that person handles anger or expresses anger, that's when you really understand who you're dealing with. And so when you fast forward into a relationship, when you go through all that honeymoon stage, holding hands, pulling out chairs, and all that other stuff, and you get into a relationship and things start shifting, things start changing, start controlling what you wear, who you talk to, who you're on the phone with, at how often you go out, and and then it starts nitpicking and you feel like anything you say is going to turn into an argument. And then you have your explosion, which can be sexual abuse, can be physical abuse, or more extreme mental abuse, right? And then after somebody abuses you, normally they say, I love you, never do it again. Um, or they make you feel like you're the reason why they act the way that they act, and which is one of the key things that people do, victim blaming, and just making you feel like, well, if you didn't make me mad, I wouldn't have done this. So if you didn't talk to this person, I wouldn't have done this. Um, and one thing about the honeymoon stage that keeps the cycle going is the fact that in the honeymoon stage, guess who comes back? The representative.
The representative. Hey, I'm back.
Yeah, the representative comes back, right? So, I'm pulling out chairs. I'm doing the same things that I use, the same tactics that I use to convince you to trust me, to love me. And so in your mind, you're like, okay, well, maybe it was my fault, or maybe he was just angry, or maybe he's just stressed out. And like times like this, well, maybe it's the pandemic, you know? And that sense of denial is what generally keeps that cycle going. And, it just keeps repeating itself. And the representative keep coming back, luring you in, you stay. And, once you're entrenched deep, and I mean, you get kids involved, I mean,
That's what one of the questions is by one of our women who wore. Tish asked, what do you do when you have children with your abuser? She said, I have not been around my abuser in about 2 years and he hit me again.
um, when it comes to children, I had a father who told me this a couple of days ago on Facebook. And he literally said he spent every dime fighting for custody of his kids. Like literally went into foreclosure. And surprisingly, actually just paid off his house like 6 months ago. But his leap of faith was really that I'm gonna fight for something worth fighting for. And what I challenge mothers to do in that situation, and the frustrating thing is it's really not the mother's job. It's really the justice system. But that's a story for another day. The justice system is usually what fails our mothers and even our fathers who are being abused or withheld from their children. Um, the best advice I have is do whatever it takes to keep your children safe. Document anything, text messages, voicemails, recording, anything that's threatening, record it. Therefore, you have evidence to say that this person is not stable, and they don't have the best interest of my children. Because in South Carolina, if you abuse the mother of your kids in front of your kids, they actually upgrade your charge to domestic violence high in the aggravated nature.
Wow. That's good to know. Tish, I know that took a lot for you to share that, so I really appreciate you asking that question. Chris, and everything you just shared, I had never heard to do. So this is going to help tons of people. So documenting everything was very, very wise. So thank you for sharing and thank you for answering that question as well. I'm going to share later Also, the power and control wheel, which we got introduced to last week with Safe Alliance, I was so baffled by the fact, and to be honest, it was scary as I was looking at it. Some of those things I personally experienced in college, and then I know people who went through that, and I was like, I really would love to be able to partner with high schools, middle schools, colleges to be able to educate them because I really feel like it starts around that age where they think it's cute, it's amazing. Oh, he called me this on the text, or all that kind of stuff. So I feel my heartstring pulled in that way, and I'm not versed enough to know it enough to be able to help. But I really feel like if we get into the school systems and as early as we can, just to educate them, I think that would be helpful as well.
I will
All
travel to you.
right. What'd you say, brother?
I'll travel to you. I said I'll travel to you.
Okay,
Um,
after the show
and
ends.
I mean, even if you look us up on YouTube, we have plenty of teachers on there who speak about the work that we do with their kids in high school, middle school. But we actually start from an elementary school level. We teach them about bullying and power and control, which we feel like are the precursor behaviors to domestic violence, because we know the root and the pillars of domestic violence is power and control. So if we can start getting them not looking at boyfriend and girlfriend, but just how to treat each other and not use power and control against another person to manipulate them to do what you want them to do. And then, as they progress, start making it a more mature conversation. Um, it's been an amazing 7, 8 years that we've been doing this with these kids, and I mean, their hunger for the knowledge is is mind blowing because no one's having this conversation. I spoke with someone the other day and I told them, I said, it's mind boggling to me how we teach sex education from fifth grade, and in high school, they're carrying around babies and learning about parenthood. And, we teach them about STDs and give them, some condoms and basically just say good luck with the rest. And to me, I feel like if we are going to teach them sex education, we have an obligation to teach them what healthy relationships are. We can't just teach them the most complex thing about relationships and basically tell them good luck.
I'm gonna say this last question. I think our churches, I should say, state a statement. We can do a better job, the local assemblies, because I'm gonna tell you right now, I have never heard a local assembly, and I've been part of 3 or 4, ever address domestic violence. And hearing from the sister that we heard from earlier today, who was at a church, the worship leader, married to a man of God and being beat up, verbally abused, physically abused, financially abused. I really want to challenge churches, pastors, ministers to bring in an expert to educate your congregation. I think, and I'm gonna say this, and y'all might hate me. Don't care. Y'all know I don't care. I'm in my late or mid 40s now. I really don't care. We have to do justice as much as we give attention to breast cancer awareness as well. We need to do the same with domestic violence. Just like we say women in that regard, and men, we need to do the same with domestic violence. And I think it's not as known, it's not as popular, but it is. We need purple Sundays as much as we need pink Sundays. Just gonna put it out there. That's all before I get in trouble.
And I said two things. And I say two things
Absolutely, so I don't get in
because
no more trouble.
I'm gonna get in trouble for you. All right. So two things. One thing about breast cancer um, is it doesn't have an opinion. It's a disease. When it comes to domestic violence, people have an opinion about it. Some people feel like it's normal. Some people grew up in a household where, they watched their mom do it or their dad do it, and you know, they have an opinion that women should be in a certain place or whatever. And so that's where I think the safe side is to go to breast cancer because there's no opinion about it. And the second thing is, and when we talk about challenging the church, is one of the things that we do every year is we have a faith-based panel based on domestic violence. And one of the things that I always challenge people on is growing up in the church. I've always, and I'm not a biblical scholar, but I think it is Ephesians chapter 5 verse 20. I think
Yep. By the wise.
wives
Mhm.
being submissive. Yeah, wives being submissive to your husbands. And I've heard that a good bit growing up in church. And until I read it for myself, I never even understood or realized that God gave a man more instruction on how to treat his wife than he did a wife being a servant. And as my wife told me, as I've continued to teach this and be kind of cautious of the way that I address it, she simply told me, like, if a male fulfills their part, a woman would not mind being submissive. But I think submissive is such a strong, misconstrued word that people feel like submissive means slavery. And it doesn't mean that you own someone. And I think when a pastor can use that verse, and I listen to it, and sometimes pastors preach on that little snippet for like 45 minutes, depending on what kind of church you go. 45, 50 minutes. And, and you're like, and once I started reading it, I was like, so we're not going to talk about Christ led the
A
church.
clause. We don't talk about the B clause.
And it said specifically in there, no man commit harm to his own flesh. And we understand when you're married, you become one. So, I mean, it speaks directly to domestic abuse and how we're supposed to cherish and honor our queens. And like I tell our young men, I said, one thing that everybody on this earth has in common, no matter what race you are, religion you are, all of us came from a woman. And if we don't honor that vessel, and especially if we can't honor that and hold y'all on the pedestal that y'all deserve to be on, then I just think that we are all um, living the wrong way, and just looking at life. And we have to get out of the culture of looking at women as property.
That's a whole nother lie that we need to have. I absolutely love it. Love it. So thank you for getting in trouble with me tonight. And my wonderful sister, Wandelin Barnett, she's a pastor of her church. Wandelin, if you want us to come down, we'll go on Zoom to talk about it. You let us know. We're happy to be there for you. And I appreciate your attendance and your comments tonight. Kristen, thank you so much for sharing your story and your time away from your beautiful family. I really do. Please tell your wife thank you for us on our behalf. We really appreciate you.
Oh, well.
Awesome. I'm going to take you out the stream, but stay right there. Listen, that was amazing. I just can't say enough about it. Please, please, please. And I really want for you all to know about this power and control wheel. I cannot, please educate yourselves on what it can look like with physical, sexual intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation, blaming, using children, using male privileges, using economic abuse. There's so many ways that this has basically came about. And I think so much we attribute to just physical, but it's way bigger than that. And our brother just shared some amazing tips tonight when it comes to documenting everything. I do want to say, please educate yourself and then educate somebody else. Don't let this be, oh, that was good live, and then you don't share it and help somebody else. I don't care if you Google whatever you need to do. Send this to somebody, send the power control wheel and say, if you have any of these signs, if they came to you about anything, please let them know. We cannot afford to remain silent. We cannot. And Wandelin just said, brother, we'll be doing something with this organization. Good. And I'm excited about that partnership, and I definitely want to do something with Remnant. All right, Saints, we'll see you all next Wednesday for Warrior Wednesday as we hear another survivor story. And please share this as many times with those catching the replay. Thank you so much. And we will see you next Wednesday.
What started as a small online prayer group turned into a worldwide phenomenon. We are Remnant Warriors Global Incorporated. Our calling is raising the next generation, equipping future leaders, mentoring God's daughters, navigating the scriptures, activating spiritual gifts, nurturing the soul, and training warriors. Over 7,000 members online in 12 countries, changing lives one post, one prayer, one Bible study